This program was brought to you by the Illinois State Bar Association. All copyrights are owned by the ISBA. If you have any questions regarding the content of this presentation, please contact the presenters at isba.fastcle.com/questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. I guess we're going to get started here. If people trickle in, that's okay. My name is Jessica Durkin, and I am the co-chair of the YLD Professional Development Committee. And this year we, for the first time, started a series of these professional development lunches, and this is our second in the series called Taking Charge. What we'd like to do here is, I have some pre-prepared questions, but please feel free to raise your hand and I'll try and get to some of your questions with our three panelists here. I'd like to introduce them to you. Seated right here is Paula Hudson Holderman. She is the Chief Attorney Development Officer for the international law firm of Winston & Strawn, LLP. She has global responsibility for the firm's professional development and all facets of education and training for its 900-plus lawyers. An attorney for more than 30 years, Ms. Holderman has been a trial lawyer, legal educator, and bar leader. In June of next year, she will become the president of the 34,000-member Illinois State Bar Association and only the fourth woman in the 137-year history.
You guys voted for me, right?
In addition to her work with Winston, Ms. Holderman, along with her husband, Chief Judge Jim Holderman, are the James C. Wood Distinguished Co-Lecturers in Intellectual Property Law at the University of Illinois, where they have been on the adjunct facility since 1993. She has taught trial advocacy on behalf of numerous law schools and the National Institute of Trial Advocacy. In 2010, she taught a course on using experts in IP cases at Peking University in Beijing. Peking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Peking, but it's in Beijing. So.
Through the ISBA Diversity Pipeline Committee, Ms. Holderman led the successful effort to create and establish the Illinois Law and Leadership Institute pilot program in 2011, which provided 3 weeks of introduction, exposure, and instruction on skills for legal career success to underprivileged Chicago high school students. In 2012, the program partnered with the National Foundation and held programs in Chicago and Carbondale, Illinois. In July 2012, Ms. Holderman was named one of the 100 Women to Watch by Today's Chicago Woman magazine. She was listed as one of 15 women lawyers making an impact by the Chicago Lawyer magazine and featured in the Law Bulletin's Women in the Law, April 2012 publication. She's received the 2011 Woman with Vision Award from the Women's Bar Association of Illinois and was also recognized by the Diversity Scholarship Foundation as the 2011 Advocate for Diversity. Ms. Holderman serves on the Board of Directors of the Illinois Bar Foundation and the ISBA Mutual Insurance Company Board. She's a member of the American Bar Association House of Delegates and was co-chair for the 2012 ABA annual meeting in Chicago. In January 2012...
That's enough.
That's enough?
Jessica, yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize you were going to read the whole thing. So.
She's a great lady.
Personally,
Thank you, Shawn.
she said I was allowed to cut something, but I was not going to be the one to cut it. So there you go.
Yeah, probably a good move. What do you want to be appointed to?
Yeah. Okay. And now, seated next to her, we have Shawn Kasserman. Shawn Kasserman is a partner and trial attorney at Corboy and Demetrio. He successfully tried cases involving medical malpractice, product liability, premise liability, transportation negligence, automobile negligence, municipal liability, and contract disputes. In addition to his trial experience, Mr. Kasserman has handled many successful appeals, both as an appellant and appellee, and has successfully settled cases involving theories as diverse as toxic torts and defamation. His success as a trial attorney has gained him recognition. In 2009, Shawn was named to the list of the top 100 super lawyers in Illinois and was the youngest of only 17 plaintiff personal injuries attorneys on the list. He's a frequent speaker and writer on issues relating to trial practice and strategy. In the past, he was the chair of the Young Lawyers Division of the ISBA and currently on the Board of Managers for the Illinois Trial Association. And finally, we have Mary C. Sabatino. Mary is the managing partner of Wiedner and McAuliffe St. Louis office, specializing in workers' compensation and insurance defense. Mary graduated cum laude from the College of Charleston in 2003, receiving a BA in English with a concentration in political science. While attending College of Charleston, Mary competed as Division I volleyball player, earning all-conference and all-Southern region honors. She also served as the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Board. Mary earned her Juris Doctorate from DePaul College of Law in 2006. While attending DePaul, Mary competed nationally as a member of the Moot Court Client Counseling Team. Mary is a former member of the Associate Board of the Boys and Girls Club of Chicago and a current member of the Board of Directors in the YWCA in St. Louis. She's a member of the American Bar Association, the ISBA, and Chicago Bar Association. Okay. So today we'd like to start talking about networking. Everyone always uses networking as a buzzword of something you have to do in order to advance your career, but I'd like to talk to the panelists about some specifics. First, though, Paula has been kind enough to make several materials for you, so maybe you can just highlight what you have given to them in their materials today.
Sure, Jessica, thanks. So as you can tell from my title, Chief Attorney Development Officer, basically that's what I do at Winston & Strawn. I'm in charge of helping all of our lawyers, all 900 of them, with their careers, whether it's through training and education or career counseling, mentoring, whatever, that's my job. So as part of that, I thought maybe you would benefit from some of the materials that I have put together for our associates and also some of the CLE programs that I've done around the state on networking. So the first thing in your packet is Taking Charge of Your Legal Career, Top 10 Tips for Success, which I redid just a little bit to be more relevant to this group. And then certainly, as you can see, the first tip that I give is talking about defining success, and then the second is putting together a plan. So then in the second paper clip, if you guys have paper clips, I'm not quite sure, I've got just a little template for SMART goals, and I'm sure all of you remember SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. That those are the parameters of the goals that you want to put together. After that, I've got a real short article that I from 2008 about the new core competencies. And the whole idea of core competencies is something that has really worked its way into law firms within the last few years. And what I liked about this is they kind of gave us the traditional core competencies, which they list as, or he does, as analytic ability, attention to detail, logical reasoning, persuasiveness, sound judgment, and writing ability. And he kind of makes a parenthetical about the writing ability, but that's probably number one. What we talk about at Winston & Strawn is your excellence in legal writing. So I don't think that has changed. But then he also talks about the new skills being collaboration skills, emotional intelligence, and this is something that we'll talk about a lot, I think, today, financial literacy, project management, another process that has really infiltrated law firms, LPM, or legal project management, technological affinity, and time management. Then the next one is another PowerPoint, like I said, of the CLE that I do, the power of authentic networking, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit since Jessica has introduced that. And then I've included a couple of handouts of some of the things that I refer to in that PowerPoint. But let me just say on the topic of networking, oftentimes when I bring up this topic at our firm or at any kind of a gathering or a CLE, some people are automatically turned off by the term networking. And they think of it as schmoozing and being fake and unrealistic and sort of gimmicky. And I guess the point I'd like to make is that none of those are true. Networking should be about being authentic and developing relationships and developing those relationships for mutual benefits. And I think the mutual people often find surprising as well. It's not always about getting something. In fact, most of the time it's about giving something, offering help in some way. So that's authentic in terms of developing a relationship. So I'm sure Shawn and Mary are going to add other things, but I would just kind of start off talking about, change your mindset about what you think networking is. and think of it more as a process for developing relationships.
Okay, Shawn and maybe Mary, where should a young lawyer go to network? Do you have any thoughts on that? Either one of you?
Yeah,
Jump
well,
in.
let me start off by saying, in terms of networking, I think everybody in this room needs to understand one thing. You're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, okay? And what I mean by that is, you know, when you have a chance to meet the president-elect of the ISBA and sit in the back corner hiding and don't sometime during the afternoon come up and introduce yourself. And if it was me, I would have read one or two things about her to make a connection with. You're going to miss that shot. Your opportunity to network is gone. I was a carpenter. I pounded nails and carried lumber until one December my knees hurt and I was cold and I thought, I'm never going to do this my whole life. And I went to law school. And at the end of my first year of law school, I called my hero, who was my granddad, who was a judge and a lawyer in a little town it was Newton, Illinois. There's about 3,000 people. Nobody's ever heard of it. But he was somebody that I looked up to, and I asked him, if you were trying to get a job in Chicago, what would you do? And he made a phone call to a man named Toby Berry, who is a lawyer in a small town in west of here, I think in Morris, Illinois. And Toby Berry called me, and he said, there's 5 people I want you to go talk to. Now, this is all for me just asking my granddad, what would you do? Toby Berry set up a meeting with Phil Corboy, Bob Clifford, Al Jenner, Tressler, Soderstrom, and Mahoney, and Lord Bissell and Brooke. And that's how my legal career started. I was a B+ student, hanging in there, not law review, not pretty, as you can see. But I had an opportunity because I asked my granddad what he would do, and my granddad networked for me through Toby Berry, and Toby Berry networked for me to get me these interviews. So, and bluntly, I didn't know who half the people were, but I went on these interviews, and the first interview I went on was with Bob Clifford, and he offered me a job as a law clerk. And I was supposed to start the following Monday. This was a Thursday, or a Wednesday. On Thursday, I'd already met with Al Jenner, and I wasn't pretty enough for Al Jenner. But on Thursday, I met with Phil Corboy towards the end of the day, and not really knowing who he was, I was overly impressed with the man. I read a little bit about him. I was prepared to talk about a couple things, but I wasn't ready for his intensity. I wasn't ready for his power. I wasn't ready for his drama. And the interview lasted about 2 hours. And he kept coming in and leaving, and then I'd be sitting there, and he'd come back with a legal assistant, and he'd quiz me, and he'd ask me different questions on different issues. He'd show me pictures of a case he was working on and ask me what I thought about it. And at the end of the evening, I was just amazed by this man, and I couldn't believe that I got to spend 2 hours with him. And as he was walking out, he said, "Now, if I did hire you, when would you start?" And going back to the old adage, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, I said, "I'd start right now." And he said, "Okay, you're hired." And I worked 2 hours that night. My parents, who were waiting for me at dinner at Shaw's Crab House, were less than pleased. There were no cell phones back in those days, so they waited and were very happy. But that's, networking is something that takes some guts, and it takes a little initiative, and you can't be afraid to fail. You're going to introduce yourself to somebody who you hope can become your mentor, or who can become a networking cog in your wheel, and they're either going to be too busy or uninterested or not like you, or not appreciate the fact that would be mutually beneficial for both of you. And that's okay. You move on to the next one. But what you can't do, if you really want to network successfully, and I'm not sure I like the term networking, but if you really want to connect with people professionally in a successful way, you have to take the shot. You have to ask people. You have to be proactive. You have to be creative on how can I get to that person. So I guess those are my thoughts on networking, at least from a broad perspective.
What I would add is that I was trying to think of advice that I was given when I was just starting as a young lawyer, and what advice I think I took, and what really helped me, and what I thought was sort of out of the box. And one of the things one of my mentors told me when I first started was, don't forget that you're a person outside of being an attorney, and that you have interests outside the law, and that it's good to pursue those interests. Because again, I don't love the word networking either. I think it's about people, and I think it's about relationships, and I think and I don't want to skip ahead to building business or because I know we'll get to that. But I think, when you're pursuing relationships anywhere in your life and you're pursuing them with other professionals, that's going to serve you well down the road. So one thing, that I was kind of told was, you obviously have interests outside the law and pursue those. And so one big thing at my firm is, they really encourage philanthropic endeavors. And they say, go, there's millions of boards in millions of different arenas. You can find something you love. If you love art, go to the Art Institute. If you love kids, when I was in Chicago, I was on the associate board for the Boys and Girls Club, and it was a bunch of people my age who were all kind of starting out in their careers, not just lawyers, very few lawyers actually, just in different, areas of practice, in different areas of business, and you can kind of connect and see what they're going through. And I think those relationships, if you continue to cultivate them, will serve you well down the road. And I think, it's good. It serves a dual purpose because you're in a board, so you're doing something good for somebody besides yourself. But the mutual benefit is, you are developing relationships with people. You are learning about different areas. Depending on what area of law you practice in, you may very well find yourself down the road wanting to do business with a lot of the people, those early relationships that you made. And so I think it's about relationships. I think it's about cultivating them, and I think it's about, staying in touch with people. So networking doesn't have to be schmoozing and going up to someone you're uncomfortable with and have nothing in common with and saying, like, I really want your information and I'm going to keep track of it and I'm going to hound you. It's about finding common interests, being comfortable exploring interests outside the law. And I think that really makes you more well-rounded, and it's good to have interests outside the law because your life can't just be work. And I think I like the, philanthropic aspect because I think it's fulfilling. I think that you come out of it and you've gained something by giving back, and you've also gained something, business-wise by developing relationships. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
If I can follow up on what Mary was saying, I read a book a few years ago called Networking for Lawyers by Susan Snyder, it was published by the ABA. And she was a lawyer and also a marketer with Freeborn and Peters. And I told her, I stole some of the stuff from her book, and it's in the PowerPoint. But she has this concept called 12 Magic Circles. And if you turn to page 6 of the networking PowerPoint, it's the top slide. And she did this for 3 age groups, basically, and I took, I think, the second one. But she basically has you think about the different networks that you have. And you can see she's got family, friends, neighbors, professional colleagues, college friends, graduate school, athletic stuff, spouses, friends, clients, parents of your children's friends, and as Mary said, professional or charitable boards. So here's 12 arenas right there that most of us are involved in some way or another. So you have a network built in to your lives. And now it's a matter of establishing relationships within those networks. And again, it's not that you're thinking that they're going to give you business, but again, it's just for establishing the rapport and the trust in a relationship that at some point may result in business, or it may result in some other sort of positive result for you, but you don't go into it for that reason. And and Shawn talked about his grandfather, and his grandfather is what we would call a connector. His grandfather knew Justice Tobias Berry. Justice Tobias Berry knew Phil Corboy, Bob Clifford, Al Jenner, etc. So his grandfather was the connector. And think of yourself as a connector as well. And think of other people who can be connectors for you.
Does anyone have any questions about networking they'd like to ask our panelists? Or move on. Don't be shy. We will take questions if you have them. Okay.
Pretty soon we'll start asking you questions. So.
Yeah, you're next. Now, the subject of mentoring. Are any of you mentors to young lawyers, or have you had a mentor when you were a young lawyer that you'd like to share with us stories about?
Yes. Obviously, I was mentored, I'm sure. Probably never in a formal way. And I would like to think that I have mentored others, but again, not in a formal way. At Winston, we do have a formal mentoring program that we started, I started a few years ago. But it meets with moderate success. And I think that's partly because somebody else is making the choice to pair people together. And so I guess I really believe in more of an informal network, finding people that you have something in common with. And so, you know, I am a great believer in formal networking programs, and certainly the Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism has put together an incredible lawyer-to-lawyer mentoring program that not only do you get mentored, but you can get your professional responsibility CLE credits for it too, so a little added plus. But I think the informal mentoring is really probably more what pays off. And interestingly, when I started in practice in 1979, I started down in Champaign County in the state's attorney's office there, and I was the first woman ever hired on the felony trial track. And so all the other attorneys in the office were male. And it was a little difficult at first, frankly, to kind of get any traction because they weren't sure about me and I didn't really know what to expect from them. But I would have to say that basically the state's attorney came in and sat on my first trial. And not only did he critique my performance, but he also critiqued the performance of the defense attorney, who was a young woman who it was her first trial too. So he sat us both down and said, okay, here's what you did right, here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, here's what you did wrong. And so that was just incredible that this guy who was the elected state's attorney of Champaign County would sit down with me and another woman and and help us out. And those lessons have stayed with me throughout. And so I would hope that I try to give that back to people too. People certainly, frankly, within the ISBA that I can think of. And I've met them again through some common experience usually, and that we then sort of end up gravitating towards one another, and I see something in her or him and I want to support her or him, and I have for very selfish reasons, and I want them to become involved and eventually be leaders within the ISBA. So that's kind of how I look at mentoring, is really more of an informal process than a formal one.
Shawn, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's true. There's going to be formal mentoring systems that you have available to you. But I think what we're all here for today is for us to explore kind of the real world mentoring that takes place. And my thought process on mentoring is a mentee is I want to be adopted by a group of mentors, okay, and not necessarily Phil Corboy or Paula Holderman, but I want, for instance, in my office we have a group of delivery guys that we call Roonies, and when I was a young lawyer, I had a Rooney that was a mentor to me, because you know what, he knew more about that office than anybody else in the whole office. He knew the ins and outs, the nooks, the crannies, the good stuff, the bad stuff, what made Corboy angry, what he liked. In fact, one of the Roonies, I didn't make enough money to make it every 2 weeks, so on Wednesday he would loan me cash out of petty cash to make it till Friday. So, you know, but he was a real mentor to me. When I got out of line, I had Ed Rooney sit down with me and talk to me about, you know, maybe what I did that I shouldn't have done, or something that I didn't do that I should have done. Same goes with regard to clerks at the courthouse, okay? Never ever overlook the importance of Judge Maddox's clerk or one of the clerks at the courthouse in their ability to act as a mentor to you. And you're not going to, none of these people do you walk up and say, hey, will you be my mentor? It's a relationship you develop with them where they realize that you're worthy of their help, where you may contribute to their life in some way, or you know what, just be a friend to them. But the relationship develops so that they become mentors to you. I think it's invaluable to have this broad range of mentors. I would find a law professor that can act as a mentor to you. I think a partner that can act as a mentor to you. There's all kinds of, a judge is a great mentor to you. Paula Holderman, when she says she thinks she's a mentor, that's not even close to true. There's hundreds of people out there who she's acted as a mentor to. And flipping that around a little bit, being a mentor is a real privilege too. There's nothing I enjoy more than a new lawyer calling me up and saying, so-and-so said I should talk to you, and we go to lunch and work on, you know, the path that he or she may love. I mean, my general advice to all of you is to be your own architect. sit back and think about why you want to practice law, why you want to be a lawyer, and then have those values and those motivations kind of be aligned with the path that you take. So, because trust me, there's a lot of lawyers that wake up 10 years later and say, what the hell am I doing? This is not my life. This is not where I want to be. So as a mentor, you can help people to understand that, and as a mentee, you can help people take you in the direction that you may know or you may not want to go, but help you to find that direction if you don't know it.
I agree with everything that was said. I was laughing because when I first read the question, I thought, no one has ever approached me and said, will you mentor me? Nor have I ever gone up to anyone and said, will you mentor me? And I think that I watch a lot of young attorneys at my firm that I know are craving sort of someone to take them under their wing. And, the best advice I can give is, you obviously see people that you look up to, you respect them for whatever reason. Either they're viewed as a great, trial attorney, or that they know how to develop clients and you want to learn skills from them, which is great. So I agree that, you obviously want to surround yourself with different types of people that are going to maybe mentor you in different arenas and that type of thing. And I would say, it just starts with a conversation. It doesn't have to be such a formal process of, can I now be your mentee, and thank you very much, I'll come once a week or whatever. And I think, a lot of attorneys that have been practicing a long time, in my experience, they want to help, they want to impart wisdom, they have learned a lot, and they like being able to tell young lawyers things. And as young lawyers, that's what we get to, we get the benefit of that, obviously. But I think a lot of it is, be aware of, if you are targeting someone in your firm to be your mentor, be aware of their time constraints too. So if they're prepping for a trial, maybe that's not the time to knock on the door and say, I'd really like to get to know you today, So be aware of that, be cognizant of that. But I think if you just try to have conversations with people that you believe will be good mentors to you, that they will probably respond very positively to that. And just, I don't know, for some reason I was thinking the time constraint, because I know some young lawyers have kind of sought out more seasoned attorneys in the firm and have just done it at inopportune times and then are turned off in the process, like, well, that person doesn't want to help me and doesn't want to give me any knowledge. And I don't think that's true. I think, they probably do, but you just got to be aware of their time and be aware of, the approach and that type of thing. But I also think having mentors outside the firm is a great thing too. I'm fortunate I have an aunt she's also an attorney in New York City, but she brings a very different perspective too, because she's a sole practitioner, and her relationships and her dealings with other attorneys in her field, which is not the same field I practice in. And I think that there's just a lot to be gained from people outside the industry, family members, friends, and I think just conversation. Again, I like the pushing of not formal, just because you can gain a lot, but it doesn't have to necessarily be and welcome to my office and you may sit for 30 minutes while we discuss your progress or that type of thing. So that's all I had.
The concept of mentoring really segues right back into the whole concept of networking. Again, it's a process of developing relationships for mutual benefits. And frankly, you as a mentee are often learning something from the mentor. And the mentor, though, by the same token, can feel that she is passing on the wisdom that she has gained over 30-some years of practice. The other thing to think about is most young people know a lot more about technology than some of the more senior people. And we have found that this is a great thing in our firm, where the younger people can actually mentor the more senior people in terms of technology and how to get a particular app on an iPad, or what an iPad is, or we still have one guy who his secretary has to type out his emails and take them in, and he has to read them off a piece of paper. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But there are lots of things that can be shared both ways. It really is a two-way street. But you don't know that until you try to develop that relationship.
I think too, you're going to see a distinction between networking. You may be networking with people whose advice you're really not seeking, but you can share other mutual benefits.
Absolutely.
As opposed to mentoring, there's somebody that you're looking to either for examples or guidance, and that's a distinction. But you're 100% right. They're really just all balled up in the same ball of wax.
The only other thing I can think is that, so in my practice, we do a lot of arbitration, which is essentially, hearings just in front of arbitrators. And I often go up not surprisingly against people much more seasoned than I am. But I have found that often after, knockdown, drag-out trials, they want to pull me aside and tell me what they think I could have done better. And it is my favorite thing to hear because, I face the same people a lot too. And I think that that's kind of something unexpected but neat to watch for, is if a lot of times you'll walk out of a trial that's 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and I can turn to my opponent and say, if I feel like I have that relationship with him or her, and say, what'd you think? Do you think I could have done something differently? And you'd be surprised at how much very, very good advice I've gotten from my opponents. So typically I wouldn't say that before trial, obviously, but maybe after the decision's been entered or something like that. But it's been kind of interesting. I've had a couple of different instances where, they'll even call me after the trial and say, I just wanted to, if you're open to it, I have a couple things I'd like to tell you. And of course my answer is, I'm absolutely open to it because I'm going to beat you the next round. So go ahead and give me the skills to do that,
Mary, that reminds me of when you talked about opposing counsel. Again, my second jury trial, and it was a DUI, and I was up against sort of the father of DUI down in Champaign County, who was an older gentleman. He truly was a gentleman, and I won, but I did sort of screw up in my closing argument. You do a lot of moot court in law school, so somehow in my closing argument I ended up arguing law instead of facts, and I kind of got hit for that. And so anyway, it goes up on appeal for that to Springfield, down to the fourth District Appellate Court. And anyway, this very nice gentleman, he is going to argue the case too. He drives me to Springfield because I don't know how to go to Springfield. He tells me where to stay, takes me out to dinner, says here are the kinds of questions that are going to come up about this. And he said, and don't try to fool them. If you don't know the answer to something, say, I'm very sorry, Your Honor, I don't know the answer. Sure enough, next morning I get in there and I'm all, and of course I cared more about how I looked than what I had to say, but I get in there and something comes up and they said, well, what about the sunshine case? And I'm going, oh God, I have no idea what they're talking about. So I remembered the advice he had given me, and I said, Your Honors, I'm very sorry, but I'm not familiar with the principle of the blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't care. I mean, they just wanted to hear themselves talk anyway. So, I mean, they just went on and on and on, and I didn't make a fool of myself. And I was very nice, and I ended up getting upheld on appeal. And I really think that it was because of the advice I got from opposing counsel. And it's not because he was undermining his client at all. He was merely being, civil and polite and telling me, this is what you can expect. And so I definitely agree, Mary, that we're still part of a profession. And members of our profession are still want to help others succeed, as long as you, frankly, and I'm sure Mary is, you're worthy of that. I mean, if you go in and you're a complete jackass and you're impolite, nobody's going to help you. They're going to get their guns out and try to take you down. But if you're in there and you're earnest and you're really trying to learn and you're doing the very best possible job you can do, people are going to reach out and try to help you.
That's very good advice. We are all here on behalf of the ISBA today, so I wanted to know how membership to a bar association, how can you make the most of it, and how can you use it to advance your career?
Well,
Paula,
pretty obviously, I would consider myself to be a decent spokesperson on that topic. And I am a true believer in bar associations, maybe to the extent, people have called me a bar junkie before. But I really think it's given me an awful lot of opportunities. Certainly in the last few years, it gave me opportunities for leadership, which I liked. But I'm sure when I got involved way back when, I wasn't thinking about that at all. What I was thinking about, I think, was getting to know other people in my field. Again, having relationships with other people that were doing what I was doing, as well as people who were often opposed to me. I got appointed to the Criminal Justice Section Council in, 1986, and it exposed me to some of the preeminent criminal defense lawyers in Chicago, as well as other prominent state's attorneys, as well as judges. And that was just a great experience for me to end up being part of that conversation. And seeing that move forward, and then hopefully gleaning from those in terms of my practice, and then becoming involved in the Bar Association, and then going on to be part of like bench and bar. And again, then you're meeting lawyers from all different fields and judges from all different fields. And I really think the ISBA has really been a compelling force in my career, and I've seen it do the same thing for others. And obviously, I'm an ISBA, proponent, but we've got incredible bar associations in Chicago and throughout the state of Illinois. And I would definitely urge all of you to join one or more bar associations. Of course, the state bar, but also other bars, whether it's the Chicago bar or an affinity group bar. And affinity group bars are great because you can often become involved more quickly and get a higher profile more quickly. So I would definitely encourage those. County bar associations, again, they're great for the professional development, but also, frankly, the camaraderie and the social development as well.
Yeah, two things on this that I want to make real clear. One is I don't think it's an option. At least in my law firm, everybody needs to participate in more than one bar association. It's imperative for business development. It's imperative for your development as a lawyer, both regarding continuing legal education, but just understanding what's going on in the city and in the state and nationally, if you choose to get involved nationally. And then I think, I'm not so sure how it affects your career advancement per se, but the opportunity for business development is just unparalleled in this state. And one of the second thing that I want to make sure you understand is that if you do it, do it. Don't join a section committee or any bar association committee and not show up, or be the person who calls in regularly and then when somebody asks you a question on the speakerphone, you're no longer there. That is counterproductive. Okay, so if you're going to do it, you got to make sure that you do it wholeheartedly. So there's only 168 hours in the week. Don't join too much stuff. Yeah. Pick one or two things that seem to really appeal to you, and I can't begin to describe for you all the different alternatives. If you go to the ISBA website and just start looking at all the different sections. How many are there, Paula?
Like 33 sections and 20 standing committees and another something, yeah.
And what you need to do then is, if you see something that appeals to you, and it may be in the area of your practice, it may be in the area of the practice that you would like to get into. It may be in the area of the practice that somebody you look up to is involved in. But join it and then be dedicated to it, and your commitment's a year. So that if you do a great job on that committee, people are going to notice, and you can ask for that committee again or a different committee. So I highly recommend that you not only do it, but that you do it with 100% of your energy. I think it's going to pay off many dividends. It's going to make you enjoy the practice of law. It's going to make you proud to be a lawyer. It's in my mind, it's really why we did what we did. We're not here, if we just wanted to represent a single entity, we wouldn't be here right now. We're really trying to, it helps you enhance the legal representation for everybody.
The only thing I would add is I think that the resources are amazing for ISBA. So the legal updates, they're right away. You get them over email. I click on them every time. I'm very appreciative of them, and I look for them, and you'd be amazed how quickly clients will call and say, did you hear about that? And I already know about it because ISBA has sent me the email telling me what I need to know about it. So I think the resources are great, and there's a lot to take advantage of. Like, for example, this seminar, or whatever you're looking for, you're going to find a topic to kind of increase your knowledge. The other thing is I feel like there is a lot of, in any area of law that you're in, there's going to be some crossover with other areas of law. So I think the networking of attorneys is important, and it's one reason I stay in touch with law school classmates of mine, is because I'll see crossover between different areas, and it's really nice to be able to pick up the phone and call that person and say, I just have a quick question for you, and vice versa. And I feel like many instances I've been able to get a quick answer from someone, or they've been able to get a quick answer from me. And sometimes it can turn into a referral, but I think more times than not, I don't rely on it for business development. I rely on it for just kind of a nice place to meet people that know things that you don't know. And I think lawyers want to help each other and do help each other, and so I think that's one reason it's been beneficial to me as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that because I think that's a great point, Mary. Is anybody here on a listserv? Okay, well, the Illinois Trial Lawyers Association has a listserv. I'm sure the defense bar does. I'm on the listserv, and it's fascinating to me to watch how quickly young lawyers can come up with an answer that was just posed and attach a brief and an opinion and all of this stuff. And what that does through the Trial Lawyer Association, there are names of lawyers that I never would have heard of, which I think of as brilliant young lawyers because they're popping up on my computer screen 3 or 4 times a day. So I would, if you have access to one of the listservs as a young lawyer, I think that's really a great opportunity for you to become noticed and to show the rest of the world your expertise.
Well, Shawn, when we were talking about bar associations, mentioned in an ability to bring in business, and earlier Mary mentioned with networking, bringing in business. So I want to talk more about that as a young lawyer. How can you go about bringing business to your firm, and how important is that as a young lawyer to bring in business to your firm? Shawn, do you want to?
Well, here, let me say this about bringing in business. I don't think it's, don't bring in business because it's important to your firm. Bring in business because it's important to you and because you're the best person to represent the people that are looking for business, okay? Have a belief in yourself that nobody in the world should represent, in my case, that victim other than me, okay? And so what drives my business development is not so much to make partner, we don't have points, or I don't know how it works in the rest of the world. But I know one thing, if a tragedy occurs, and I have the great privilege of representing that family or that victim, I want to bring in that business. So, relating it back to bar associations, quite honestly, it is business development in the sense that if somebody that I sit on a committee with sees my passion and knows my passion and believes in my passion, and their next door neighbor has a tragedy, I have a chance of getting that phone call, okay? And I'm not doing it for that reason, but it is a natural byproduct of being involved in bar associations or any of Paula's 12 circles.
And that's the mutual benefit. You're going to help your neighbor, and your neighbor feels confident. Shawn Kasserman will do my neighbor right? And you also then get the business. So that's the give and the take about it too.
And the opposite is true. If you sit on a committee and you aren't the type of committee member that somebody's going to want to send business to or refer their next door neighbor to, you're really going backwards. So if you don't do it correctly, it's not only not business development, it's probably business deterring in a very large sense.
Well, and that gets back to Shawn's point about, if you join a bar association or any kind of an organization, civic, charitable, whatever, you really do have to do a good job at it because that's your public persona. That's how people think of you. And if you don't go to the meetings, or you don't get your reports in when you're supposed to, or you don't make the calls that you promised to make, when they're thinking about recommending you for a piece of business, they're going to think that you take exactly that same attitude about how you handle business, and they're going to say, yeah, you know what, that guy, he never really gets anything done. I'm going to think of somebody else. So, and I'm sure, Mary, it's got to be the same way in your business.
So I have a little bit of a different perspective because I do defense work and our clients are corporations. So as a young lawyer, is it imperative to bring in business? I would say no, that as a young lawyer, it's imperative to learn the law and to make sure you know what you're doing and you're churning out a good work product, and that you're learning the area that you're in and you're learning it well so that you can talk about it, so that when you get to the point where you want to begin developing business, you have that good foundation. And why I think it's similar to Shawn is as we start to develop business, for me, it's a very easy sell because I believe in the product that my firm gives. I think that our service is unparalleled, and I know that because I've been, because I had my nose to the grindstone and learned the law and of course now I'm biased because I believe we have a great service product. So when we go now to speak to clients, I'm very comfortable saying why I think our service product is better than other people's and that type of thing. So it's a little bit different just because of the nature of our work and the type of clients that we typically bring in. But the other thing I would say is, I think it depends what your goals are with the firm. If you have no interest in being a partner and you just want to be the best lawyer in the entire world, you don't have to bring in business. You can just be a great lawyer. And we have a number of them at my firm who have made a conscious decision to just say, I want to know every aspect of the law. I want to be a great trial lawyer. I want to know every objection that could possibly come up in the correct response to it. And they do well. And I think that there's another type of lawyer that says, I only care about the partner track. And, and my goal in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years is to be owning this firm. And I think to do that, that's where the business development really comes into it. So is it for everyone? I would say no. I think business development is hard. And I think it is difficult, number one, to bring in clients. And I think it's really difficult, number two, to maintain clients. And so I think that, go in with eyes wide open. It's tough, and it's especially tough for young lawyers, especially, again, I'm speaking from my area, which is essentially pitching corporations and major employers in Illinois. And it's tough as young lawyers. They like gray hair. They want to know that you're seasoned, and who are they giving their business to. And so
I would kill for gray hair.
It's a bit of an uphill battle, so I sometimes consider not dyeing mine, but then I always go back to dyeing it. So it doesn't, I don't know, how far do you want to go? But, so I think, as young lawyers, I would say learn the law. Don't worry so much about going out and trying to sell your firm and trying to sell your product, because what are you selling? You better know what you're talking about before you go into these meetings and saying, like, you should come to my firm. But I also think, it gets easier if you believe in what you're doing and you believe in the products that you give out. That, to me, makes it quite easy to talk about at least to clients. It doesn't make it easy to bring in business, but for me, I love what my firm does. I think that we got it right. I think we get it right. I think we do well, and I feel very comfortable telling clients why I think we do a superior job to other firms. And so, I think that's where it's in line with what Shawn's saying. Is like, do you believe in what you're doing? And if you do, then you're going to be the best person to represent these clients. And isn't that pretty important when when you're talking about developing business or whatever?
In a firm like Winston, it is a little bit different, and Shawn referred to, points, and we do have points at Winston and Strawn. But actually, our associates, and we're on more or less an 8-9 year partnership track. But as an associate, you literally cannot get credit for bringing in business. It's just not the way the firm operates. And then, of course, that's not really a criteria for partnership, because if we don't let you get credit for bringing in the business, then you're not really incentivized to do it. But what we are looking for, basically, is the potential to bring in business. And it takes into account all the things that Mary and Shawn mentioned. Do you really know the law? Are you passionate about it? Do you care about your clients? Are there clients within corporations, say the assistant to the assistant general counsel? Do they call the fourth-year associate directly rather than the partner to say, well, I've got this question, how do you think I should handle it? That's what we're looking for, is that ability to be moving on up, and that people trust you with giving them advice, or trust you with their matters. So the actual bringing in of business is not important, but what is important as young lawyers is your potential, your capability to do so. Now, it does all change, candidly, when you become a partner, and then we do expect you to bring in business. And there's a little bit of a, sort of a disconnect there, that for the first 8 or 9 years we say, no, you can't get credit for it, and then your ninth year, okay, you got to start bringing in those clients. But again, we see it as as a continuum of the skills that you're developing, and the personality and the relationships and the networking and the trust and the rapport that will and the excellence, as Mary mentioned, that will lead to you being able to bring in clients.
Does everybody follow that? Because we talked about networking and mentoring and bar associations, but there is no substitute for getting business for being a great lawyer. And if you try a case and win a case that your partners don't think you should have, it's going to help. If you take on an assignment that nobody else wanted and bring it to a successful resolution, whether that means settling a $30 million case for $28 million on the defense side or getting a verdict when everybody thought it was going to be a not guilty. You have begun the most important steps towards bringing in business, and there's no substitute for it. But those other things that we talked about are important, and I think necessary as well.
Does anyone have any questions for our panelists? There we go. All right, I'm going to bring a microphone up to you.
It's not that bad.
So my question was to kind of go back to the mentoring question. I know you talked a little bit about what you can offer to your mentors, and I was wondering if all of you might expand upon that a little bit, because I have some people that, that I'm starting to build a relationship with, but it feels like it's constantly take. And I'd like to make it more of a two-way street. So I was wondering if you could talk a little more about that.
Well, flattery will get you a long way. But I do mean that with some seriousness in terms of your response to their advice. I guess where I have felt most rewarded in a mentoring relationship is where the mentee has taken either a piece of advice or a suggestion and has acted upon it, and it has worked. And that's hugely rewarding and satisfying to me. So it's just one example.
Or join a committee that he or she is involved with and become the worker bee on that committee. That was one of the things that I did early on. Todd Smith was one of my mentors. And he was just wonderful to me. Well, he was running for third vice president, and I got involved with the ISBA Young Lawyers division and was really able to kind of be, his go-to guy with young lawyers during that whole campaign process. And so, if you use your imagination, get creative, there are many, many ways that you can create that symbiotic relationship by helping your mentor or showing your mentor that you can be helpful.
I have two examples. One is a work one. There's certain people in my firm who are revered as the ones who can recall cases off the top of their head, and if it was 30 years ago or whatnot. And so I often feel like I am just bugging them, because if I have a very specific random question, I'll buzz them and say, I know this is really annoying, but can you recall the case where, or have you ever had a case where this? And so in that instance, and they always are lovely to me and give me the case or give me their insight into it. And then I think what I can do back for them, or what I've tried to do at least, is if something about that specific question, if there's a new case that pops up that has to do with that, or if I come across a different case that maybe that person wasn't aware of because it's so recent or something like that, then I'll just buzz the person back and say, remember that conversation we were having about such and such? Did you know that this case came out about X, Y, and Z? And maybe they know and maybe they don't, but I think they at least appreciate that I'm continuing the conversation and making sure maybe I taught them something, maybe I didn't, but I think they appreciate that. It's a pretty specific law example. But another example, this is right in line with what Shawn was saying, is, so I'm on the board of directors for the YWCA in St. Louis, and it's all really, really exquisite women that sit on this board. And one of them I have, tried to become her mentee informally, like we were talking about. She's remarkable, and she's lovely, and agrees to meet me for, lunch quarterly and that type of thing. But just what he was saying, she'll start chairing a committee. I join the committee for the YWCA, and then I'm killing it on the committee because I want to show, I want to make her life easier. I want the committee to do well because she's the chairperson of it. And so I think that there's just ways to kind of give back, and I try to be exceptional so that her committee looks exceptional, and so that she thinks I'm a valid part of it, and that's everything. So I think that's sort of a one work and one outside of work example.
Any more questions?
So with social networking being more prevalent now, do you have any advice or experiences in terms of reaching out to someone blindly who you may want to network with because you've seen their profile on LinkedIn, or you may want to have a job change or something like that, but you don't want to approach them in a way that's too invasive, or they're like, I don't know you, or anything of that nature?
Well, in all candor, I'm probably not as receptive to cold calls, through social media as I am to other ways. But what I am receptive to, I've found, is that this person then, they can look at my network, like on LinkedIn or Facebook, and they find somebody that they know who does know me. And then if that person calls and says, well, she's the gal I've known, she's a great gal, she's just kind of at a crossroads, she's thinking about changing jobs. You're so well known for helping people, the flattery part comes in. And then you say, oh, sure, okay, fine, I'll talk to her. She's a friend of yours, I'll be happy to talk to her. And then they come in, and then you do perhaps start, a relationship. But I understand what you're asking, and for my part, I'm probably not as receptive. But again, you can use that as the connector. Find out who does know me or somebody else, and ask them if you know them. That's how I would do it.
I think that's good advice. I would be more receptive to friending you if I never heard of you, or accepting your invitation on LinkedIn if I've never heard of you. I've kind of got one rule, like I have to see somebody that knows you, and you can't be my client. I guess I have two rules. I want to make sure you're not my client, and then I want to see if I know somebody that knows you. But bluntly, this is a good example of where you guys should be mentoring us, because you're so much better at it, and you understand it so much more thoroughly. And let me suggest that it's here to stay, okay?
Yeah.
We're not going to talk you out of it. You're going to talk us into it. So I would utilize any modality that you felt comfortable with, but do it in a professional way and in a classy way. And certainly if you can find a third person to make the connection, or even if you could say, I saw you at the luncheon yesterday and enjoyed your point on X. Or
that's true.
We met for 2 minutes
right.
in the long drink line at the Bar Association event.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reach out to you. That's so much more helpful than Cindy Jones wants to be your friend, because first of all, it flashes up and then you go on to your next email. It's a hook is probably best in my mind, but I'm a little bit yesterday on the whole thing too. I'm not where I should be on social media.
I don't really have much to add, except that if I have never heard of you, I typically will not add you. So I think that if you have a third person somewhere in there, I would recommend it. And if it was going to be, a cold call via LinkedIn or something, I'm at least putting an email explaining why I'm trying to connect with you, as opposed to just saying, connect with me.
Right.
At
That's
least
a good point.
You don't know me. I have read your profile. I've been following your career. Boy, I'd love a chance to meet you. I know that sounds outrageous, but if you wouldn't mind a lunch or something. I just think give them some background so they at least know where you're coming from, as opposed to just a random person thinking, oh, they must have me confused with somebody else because I don't know who this person is and we have no mutual friends.
In my mind, Zuckerberg's brilliant, because the whole idea of declining a friendship goes against everything my mother taught me my whole life. So I just can't push that button.
Defriending.
Ignore.
There you go.
Is there any other questions? I think we have time for a couple more. Do we have any? No? Oh, there we go.
Hi, I was wondering if you guys could speak a little bit about how you make time for networking in your schedules. Is it something you block out? Does it happen naturally? What's
Well,
your
I think
process?
there's a lot of different ways of doing it. And if you, and maybe blocking out time is the way to do it to begin with. But the ultimate goal is that it becomes part of your life. It's part of your career. It's something that you do naturally. But there are a lot of people that maybe need to kind of put the time aside. Now, for instance, in my networking one, I think my last slide tells you that you need to do a couple of things. One of which is I want you to put together your network with using those magic circles, and then I need you to pick 4 people that you're going to connect with this week. And then next week, you're going to go back and you're going to look at those magic circles and see who should I connect with this week. And then hopefully you'll start getting connections from those connections. You'll want to follow up. Somebody said, when you call them, yeah, I'd love to do lunch, but I've got this big case this week. So in 2 weeks, you're going to call them up and go, hey, how'd you do in your case? Do you have time for lunch now? So it's, you kind of get started and then you follow up about stuff that you actually care about, that they care about. So I think, to get started, maybe you need to put time aside, but hopefully it'll become part of just who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I, in terms of putting time aside, you can't say from, Tuesday night at 5 till 8, I'm going to spend my networking time. But what you can do is say, in the next month, I'm going to spend 15 hours networking. And at the end of the month, go back and see where you were short or whether you did what you promised yourself you would do. Because, especially with the Bar Association stuff, you can't dictate when that's going to happen. But you can dictate whether you're proactive and find out what's going on, when it's going on, and make sure you get there.
I also think it goes back to do what you like so that it doesn't feel like such a chore. I'm looking at one of Paula's circles, and it's athletic clubs and sports. I mean, I love sports, and so when I lived in Chicago, it was volleyball one week and kickball one day a week, and something that doesn't feel like networking, but you're connecting with people your age, you're connecting with people not your age, you know what I mean? You're going to events that sound fun to you. If there's a museum you're interested in, go to an event at the museum. It's 2.5 hours one night, and you can meet different people there, and that to me constitutes networking, and it doesn't feel like a chore. And then, if you're keeping track of your hours at the end of you might have attended 5 great events, and there's your 15 hours, and I'm sure you would have met at least one interesting person at the event and not felt awkward asking for the card or whatever you thought was the next step in the relationship. So I think do what you enjoy. It shouldn't have to feel like such a chore all the time. So I don't know.
That's exactly right.
I wrote that down. That's the best point of the day.
And then, of course, stand in the longest drink line. I know Shawn likes that one, too.
No, that's in her
Do you
outline.
guys all get that one? Stand in the, because then you're instantly have somebody to talk to, either in front of you or in back of you. And you start by saying, oh my God, look at how long the drink line is, right? So you already have that in common. And then you kind of talk about the event, and you form a conversation as you're moving up in line. So rather than going to that, that cocktail party and going, oh, I hate these, I don't like to schmooze, the lines are always so long, embrace it as an opportunity. Go and get in the long drink line and chat with people. And, of course, don't get in too many lines, and you won't remember who you've met. But that's what I mean about standing in the longest drink line. Take advantage of it. Look at these things as opportunities as opposed to pain in the neck.
When you're president-elect, you're always in the longest drink
You
line because
are,
everybody
yes.
follows you.
Well, I don't know about that.
She's in charge of the longest drink
Yeah.
line. They're already behind her. I want to thank our panelists today. They did a really great job.
Oh, thank you.